Chapter 16, Blackout. The Angel of Rain attacks. Nerve Medical Wing. Asuka woke with a start. She bolted upright in bed, scanning her surroundings. She was in a hospital bed, that was for sure. No one else was in the room with her, and she was right by a window. A glance out of it revealed that she was back at the gate front. How the hell did I get here? She asked herself. Last thing I remember was me on the island, heading over to Shi. Her eyes widened, faint memories of what happened after she drank the flask returning to her. Oh, CS. I didn't actually have S. The sound of an opening door interrupted her horrified musings. Ritsuko walked in, carrying her standard medical clipboard. The doctor seemed a bit more haggard than usual, Asuka noted. Her clothes weren't as straightened out, and her eyes had bags under them. "Good morning, Asuka," Ritsuko said flatly. "How are you today?" "How did I get here?" Asuka asked, ignoring the question. Ritsuko sighed. "You were brought here by the Super X, as these EDF fellows call it." "Wait, you know about them?" asked Asuka. "What did I miss while I was asleep?" Ritsuko sighed again, rubbing her eyes wearily. "Apparently, Nerve and the EDF have formed an alliance against the Angels. I'm having trouble buying it myself, Asuka." She pinched the bridge of her nose before continuing. "Travel between universes, alien invasions, mutants, psychics, self-aware robots, fairies, it sounds like something out of a science fiction movie than real life. I'm still trying to take it all in." "What about Shinji and the others?" Asuka asked. "Are they alright?" "They're fine. And before you ask, nothing happened between you and Shinji," Ritsuko replied, a faint smile of amusement forming on her lips. "That's a relief," Asuka said, getting out of the bed. "To think that I would even try anything with the AKA." Ritsuko shrugged. "Shinji and the others are waiting for you outside, they'll help debrief you on everything that's happened." "About time," Asuka muttered, hurriedly dressing and following Ritsuko out of the room. Shinji was sitting in the hallway, along with Misato and Ozaki. Upon seeing Asuka, Shinji's face brightened noticeably and his posture straightened. "How are you, Asuka?" he asked. "I'm fine," she replied tersely. "So, what have I missed?" Shinji gave a small smile. "It's a long story." Nerve Command Center. "So," Aoba said, leaning back in his chair, "let me get this straight. There is an entire universe separate from ours, that has aliens, psychics, magic, and even more giant monsters than this one? And now we're working with them?" Fuatsuki nodded wearily. "Yes, that's the case." Aoba shrugged. I guess it's neat." "What does the alliance mean for us?" Maya asked, somewhat fearful. "Are we going to be replaced?" "No," Fuatsuki replied. "There will be no downsizing for the Nerve staff. However, you'll be seeing some new faces around here. In fact, you will have someone from the EDF working right here." "Who?" Hyuga asked. "Me," replied someone behind them. As one, the Bridge Bunnies whirled about to meet their new co-worker. They were, to say at the very least, surprised. Maya actually let out a yelp of fear, and Hyuga scooted back a little in his seat. It was rather understandable, considering the fact that the owner of the voice was an 8-foot-tall creature that bore considerable resemblance to an insect. It was garbed in a black uniform of some sort that strained and stretched where the alien's exoskeleton protruded outwards. Strangely intelligent compounded eyes regarded the Bridge Bunnies with unknown emotions behind them. "Ibuki, Hyuga, Aoba, meet your new co-worker, Anat Volkauta," Fuatsuki said. "He is a member of an alien species that came from Space Hunter Nebula M," he added, clearly confused as to what kind of name for a planet was that. "Pleased as punch to make your acquaintance," Anat said cheerfully, extending a long arm with 3 pincer-like fingers at the end. There was a brief pause, then Aoba took the hand. With trepidation. The Nebulan shook strongly, clicking his mandibles in what Aoba hoped was a positive manner. "Pleased to make your acquaintance as well," Aoba replied uneasily. Anat clicked his mandibles again. "I'm really excited to work here. By the Great Burrower, I'm in a completely different universe." Aoba decided not to ask what the Great Burrower was. He felt that the explanation would be a long one. "We're glad to have you work here, too," Maya said, overcoming her earlier fear. "Where are you going to sit?" "I'll sit here," Anat replied, taking the seat next to Aoba's. The chair groaned and strained, threatening to buckle under the titanic mass sitting on it. "I've been studying your computer systems for quite some time now. I think that I have a handle on it." "Wait, how long have you known about us?" Aoba asked himself. Fuatsuki allowed himself a small grin. "Now that you have all been acquainted with each other, it's time to get back to work." "Yes, sir," they all replied at the same time. "Somewhere in the halls of Nerve." "Okay, so that spiky armadillo thing and that giant pterosaur defeated the 8th angel while we were on the island?" Asuka asked. She was walking with Shinji through the halls, having left the others behind. Shinji nodded. "It explains where they were going in such a hurry. The Super X also came in to help, but they got their cover blown and had to reveal their existence to the world." "Commander Gordon was never one for subtleties," Zone Fighter commented. "Did I ever tell you about the time he used the Gongo to blow up?" "Later," Shinji replied. Asuka fell silent for a moment or two, trying to think of something else to ask. She found it, and her eyes narrowed. "What really happened on the island after I drank that G-cell serum?" "Uh-oh," Zone Fighter quipped. Nothing happened, Asuka," Shinji replied uneasily. "You're lying, Baka," Asuka replied angrily. "I can see it in your face, you're as red as a lobster right now." "What? Really? Happened?" "Well, you might have, kissed me," Shinji replied somewhat guiltily. "That's it?" Asuka asked, surprised. "I thought it was something worse." Shinji decided to let her go with that, not adding that she was half naked at the time. "Anyway," Asuka continued, "what happened to your dirtbag of a dad?" "Not a goddamn clue," came Kaji's voice behind her. The agent casually strolled up to the two of them, a cigarette in the corner of his mouth. The former commander decided to make a run for it as soon as Jet started hacking into the Magi. "I've been talking to my network of contacts. No one has any idea where he could be right now. It's almost as if he vanished into thin air." Planet X, G Earth. Rogar was making an underestimate when he said that Seal had impressive biotechnology, X decided. Now that they were allies, they could get a closer look at the schematics of the Evangelion weapons they were making. It was astonishing, really, that a rather primitive Earth could exceed even the Kylak in biotechnology. Of course, they were still primitive in many other regards. The Evangelion's armor was weak in comparison to what the Simians and Nebulans had used for their designs, and the weapons they carried were mere pea-shooters before the firepower any of the races wielded. As such, it was natural for what Ikari asked for. X leaned back in his chair, propping his feet on the table. "So, you want us to upgrade your Evangelions?" "That is correct," Gendo replied calmly. "As it stands, the mass production series has the same armor and weaponry available as the models being used at Nerve. As seen when large-scale Organism 1 attacked Mount Fuji, they are inadequate for combat against the forces from your universe." "Large-scale Organism 1?" the Nebulan leader asked. "Do you mean Godzilla?" Gendo raised an eyebrow. "You are familiar with the creature?" X chuckled. "He's the reason why we're on this miserable rock. That scaly bastard's beaten back every single one of our invasions with the help of the humans and his giant allies." "That obviously means that you have experience with the creature, this Godzilla, as you call it," Gendo said. "Does that mean you know its weaknesses? Has anything ever gotten close to killing it?" You can count the things that have genuinely hurt him on one of your hands, Rogaur replied. Obscene amounts of cadmium weaponry. Mecha Godzilla. Anti-nuclear energy bacteria. Destoroya. King Ghidorah. What is King Ghidorah? Gendo asked. Is it another creature from your universe? King Ghidorah is the most powerful, dangerous, and insane creature in the universe, X replied. He is the destroyer of worlds, the abomination, the living death, the antithesis to creation. He has been around since the dawn of time, moving from planet to planet and scouring them clean of life. He also has a strong contempt for Earth, especially Godzilla. Or rather, had, Rogaur interjected. He attacked Earth during the Kailak invasion in the human year of 1999, hoping to take advantage of the chaos and finally destroy the planet. Instead, he was killed by a veritable kaiju army led by Godzilla. We have managed to clone him, but it's an imperfect creation, X continued. Far weaker than the original creature. Does anything remain of the creature? Gendo inquired. His middle head, the Nebulan leader replied. The EDF moved it far away from Earth, just in case it proved to be capable of regenerating. Right now, it's located in the center of a large military base on Mars. Getting in would be, to say at the very least, difficult. Gendo smirked slightly, making X shudder slightly. But not impossible. Nerve HQ, 1 week later. It was a quiet day at Nerve, something that was greatly appreciated by the staff there. Fuatsuki had gone out of the room to hold another meeting with the EDF commanders on the base, leaving the bridge crew by themselves. Aoba repositioned himself in his chair, trying to get comfortable as he read the textbook Anat gave him. It was a history of the 20th century, albeit one from a very different universe. Anat had personally found it a tad dry. For Aoba, it was astonishing, mesmerizing. Giant monsters awakened by the arrogance of man. Alien invasions that threatened to destroy humankind, beaten back by the heroics of men and monsters alike. It was all very fascinating. Already Aoba had gotten to the Kailak invasion of 1999. Hyuga rose from his seat, stretching. I'm grabbing a green tea. Ibuki, do you want a drink? Maya shook her head. I'm good. Aoba? Hyuga asked. I'll go with a tea as well, Aoba replied. Coffee for me, Anat said to the side, not bothering to look up from the console. Hyuga raised an eyebrow. I didn't know your species drank coffee. Anat looked up from the console and glared at Hyuga with mock indignation. Just because I look like a roach doesn't mean I eat like one, he replied. Oh, sorry, Hyuga said, rubbing the back of his head. That being said, Anat continued, I would like a lot of extra sugar in my coffee. How much? Hyuga inquired. Half, Anat replied. Of a packet? Hyuga asked, surprised. Of a cup, Anat deadpanned. Maya snickered, trying her best to hold it in. Thankfully, the large Nebulan didn't seem to notice. Aoba wondered how good his hearing was. All right then, Hyuga said with trepidation. Half a cup of sugar for you. With that, he left the room, wondering if there was even that much sugar at the nearby coffee machine. Anat once more focused his attention on the console. You know, I'm pretty sure I'd die of a heart attack if I drank something with half a cup of sugar in it, Aoba commented, closing his book. Of course you would, Anat replied, his antennae twitching occasionally. You're a human. There are plenty of differences in biology between the two of us. I can't eat a bag of potato chips without dying from all of the salt you guys put in it. Life without potato chips is not a life I would want to live, Aoba said, leaning back in his chair. With that, the room went dark. Chichijima, Ogasawara Archipelago. Godzilla raised his head, glaring at an unseen point on the horizon. The tingling sensation in the back of his head was back. Another one of the things had made itself known to the world, threatening the already damaged balance of nature. However, He already had a mission to perform: protect the egg. Mothra was at her weakest when she began her reincarnation cycle anew. A multitude of threats could easily destroy her for good. A great number of this world's metal vessels were surrounding the island, ready to fire an onslaught of weaponry that could destroy the egg at any given moment. The only deterrents were Rodin, Anguirus, and himself. If they were to leave and combat the threat, the humans take advantage of their absence. He did not trust the humans of this world, especially after their attempt to take his son. He noticed now that the thing was incredibly weak. Even Baragon could have killed it. Perhaps he could just let the humans take care of it, especially the entity that Miki told him was called Shinji. He rested his head on the ground and curled his tail around the egg. The humans could handle this one. Nerve HQ. Shinji and Asuka were walking down to meet Rei in her hospital room when the halls suddenly turned dark. What happened to the lights? Asuka asked, exasperated. Shinji shrugged. Maybe it's a blackout. Here? This is the most important place on the planet, shouldn't there safety measures or something? Asuka exclaimed. That makes sense, Shinji replied. Suddenly, his eyes widened. Rei? Rei? Asuka asked, confused. What about Wonder Girl? What if her life support failed or something? We have to hurry. Shinji replied. With that he suddenly brought his hands together. Zondoboru Faitu. Asuka had to shield her eyes from the sudden flash of light. When she lowered her arms, Shinji was in his armor. Yellow eyelights illuminated the hall, serving as makeshift flashlights. Follow me, he said. Elsewhere. It was starting to get really hot in the elevator now. Misato wiped a trickle of sweat from her forehead. Already she had discarded her uniform jacket, but it wasn't helping as much as she hoped. You know, you could just strip more if you wanted to, Kaji said with a chuckle, leaning against the elevator wall. Dude, I'm right here, Hyuga said from another corner of the elevator, his uniform jacket unbuttoned. Not that I wouldn't mind much. We are here as well, twin voices called out from an ornately carved wooden box on the ground. Moving on from your perverted request, Misato said. Suggestion, Kaji interrupted. Request, Misato continued, I wonder who could have caused the blackout. Maybe it was aliens, Hyuga suggested. If it weren't for all of the weird shit I've learned in the past month, I would have thought you were joking, Kaji said. Speaking of aliens, how are you getting along with that Unaut fellow? I'm still a little freaked out, but otherwise it's going well, Hyuga replied. I don't think he wants to eat me anymore. Misato groaned. How much longer until we get out? She asked herself mentally. Commander Fuatsuki's office. Gordon slammed the phone back onto the receiver. Lines are down, he grumbled. My communications array is still working, Jet said. Perhaps we could call for assistance. From whom? Fuatsuki inquired. Chances are, whoever caused this blackout is either in SEAL or the government, which has a considerable degree of overlap. That's why we get help from elsewhere, Gordon replied. Suddenly, Miki barged into the office. Sir, an angel is coming to the city. Fuatsuki sighed and rubbed his temples. Perfect timing, he said wearily. Nerve Medical Wing. With Shinji leading the way, they got to the infirmary quick enough. Just like in the rest of the base, the lights here were also out. As one they barged into Rei's hospital room, fully expecting the worst. What they didn't expect, however, was finding an empty bed. Asuka did a double take. Where did Wonder Girl go? I don't know, Shinji replied. Before they could do anything else, however, loud creaking noises sounded out over their heads. Raising their heads, they noticed that the air vent right above them was shaking and bulging in places. What the he? Asuka began, only to be pushed out of the way by Shinji. It was just in time, the vent finally opened up, spilling out Toji. Before the fourth child could rise, however, he was pancaked by a falling Kinsuke. Then Ozaki. then on to Nashi, then Maya, then Eba. All in rapid succession. Even Asuka had to wince in sympathy for the poor stooge. "Hey guys, long time no see," Toji said weakly from under the pile of bodies. "What are you doing in Nerve?" Shinji asked. "Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Toji's the fourth child," Kensuke replied, rising from the pile and cracking his back into place. "Never mind that, where's Wonder Girl?" Asuka asked. "I am here," came the reply from an undamaged section of the vent. Sure enough, Rei scooted into sight and was helped down by Ozaki. Aside from some bandages around her head and an arm cast, she seemed okay. "How are you, Rei?" Shinji asked. Rei frowned. "Turbulent. I was rather surprised by the commander's disappearance, as well as the discovery that there is another Earth inhabited by aliens and monsters. I still have yet to reach emotional stability." Rei was definitely alright. "Where were all of you stooges heading, anyway?" Asuka asked. "The Eva cages," came another voice from the air vent above. To Asuka and Shinji's surprise, a massive shape began to squeeze its way out of the vent, until eventually it landed on the floor and stood before them. Shinji then recognized it as a Nebulan. Asuka, having yet to learn the various alien species that called the other Earth home, instinctively backed away with a small yelp. "Before I forget, let me introduce you to Anat Volkauta, our new co-worker," Alba said. "Pleased to meet you, Zone Fighter," the Nebulan said, extending a hand. Shinji shook it, wincing slightly from Anat's strong grip. "It's just Shinji," he replied. Anat shrugged. "Sorry, just a bit starstruck." "How the hell did you manage to fit in there?" Asuka inquired, dumbfounded. "Collapsible body frame," Anat replied proudly. "I can squeeze into any space I can fit my head in." Maya shuddered. "It was so freaky crawling through the vents with him skittering about behind me. No offense." "It's understandable. I remember when I got stuck in a kiddie slide with a Kailak as a hatchling," Anat replied. "It still gives me nightmares from time to time." Asuka decided not to press any further into that particular subject. "Why do we need to go to the angel cages?" Shinji asked. "There's an angel attacking," Ozaki replied. "It slipped out of the ocean during the blackout and is apparently using acid to burn its way through the Gavfront's armor. Looks like it's time to kick some angelic ass," Asuka said, cracking her knuckles. "Which way to the Eva cages?" "Follow me," Maya replied. With that, the group began to make their way. Commander Fuatsuki's office. Jet continued to tweak with the device set on the desk. According to the android, it would take another half-hour or so to get in contact with the EDF forces back on their Earth. Until then, all Gordon and the others could do was wait. "So," Fuatsuki began, breaking the ice, "Miss Sagusa, how did you exactly become a psychic?" Miki looked up from the book she was reading. "I was born that way. Something about the mixture of human and Mysterian DNA just clicked into place." "Ah," Fuatsuki said, rather disappointed with the lack of conversation. He considered trying to start a game of Go with Gordon, but the look on the man's face dissuaded him from the idea. Sighing, he readjusted himself on the seat, contenting himself with watching Jet work. That was interrupted when Miki suddenly snapped the book shut. "Commander Gordon, Shinji and the others are trying to reach the Eva cages." Fuatsuki was about to inquire how she could know that, then realized just how silly of a question it was. Gordon rose from his seat. "Jet, keep working on the machine. When it's finished, ask for a division of Maser tanks and the Super X-3. Miki, Fuatsuki, follow me. We're going to help get the Evangelions ready for combat." "How?" Miki asked. Gordon grinned. "Good old-fashioned muscle. In the halls of Nerve." "So," Toji began, walking along Shinji, "you're actually Zone Fighter?" "Not exactly," Shinji replied. "Zone Fighter is the name of the alien who bonded with me and gave me powers." "Oh?" Toji said. There was a brief pause before he spoke again. What's it like? Well, he likes to talk a lot, and we hang out in my dreams, Shinji began before Toji shook his head. I meant, what's it like clobbering angels in the snows? Toji asked. Shinji shrugged. It's not easy, but it's necessary. Weird answer, the jock replied. They reached the doors to the EVA cages shortly thereafter. Since the power was out, Shinji, Ozaki, and Anat had to pry the doors open and let the others in. Sure enough, the EVAs were waiting in their cages. A number of technicians were already getting to work, moving equipment and parts into place with manual labor. To his surprise, Shinji could see Gordon and Fuatsuki among them. Glad you could make it, Miki suddenly said mentally. The Angel is currently above the GA front. The elevators aren't working, but apparently Ritsuko is outfitting Unit 01 with a big battery pack of sorts. As per Fuatsuki's suggestion, Asuka will take the Evangelion and climb to the surface. I'll go with her, Shinji replied. About that? Zone Fighter interjected. Before Shinji could ask what he meant by that, he realized that his belt was blinking. Sighing, he transformed back to his normal form in a flash. Looks like I'm staying on the ground, huh? Never mind that, let's get to work, Miki said. About 20 minutes later, Asuka clambered upwards in Unit 01, using the gaps between levels in the elevator shaft as handholds. It was not an easy task, especially with a heavy battery pack and pallet rifle slung across her back. Nonetheless, she was making good progress. Already she was 90% of the way up, part of the Angel was visible. One thing was for sure, this Angel was titanic. She cleared the rest of the elevator shaft and finally reached the surface. The Angel was about 300 meters away, or at least its main body was. The Angel was absolutely massive, a black hemisphere twice the size of an EVA supported by 4 folded legs. It reminded Asuka of a daddy long legs. The hemisphere part of its body was covered in markings that looked like human eyes, and the corrosive she was told about was pouring out of the central eye. Unslinging her pallet rifle, Asuka prepared to fire. Just as she pulled the trigger, however, the Angel moved out of the way, raising its main body. The massive bullets missed it considerably, instead slamming away into a nearby hillside. The Angel then twisted its body, pointing its center eye towards here. See us, Asuka muttered, ducking out of the way just in time. A stream of acid missed her narrowly, dissolving a nearby skyscraper instead. Asuka fired once more, and managed to sever one of its long legs. LCL sprayed out of the wound, coating the streets in the process. The Angel responded noiselessly, instead rising to its full height by unfolding its 3 remaining legs. Now Asuka could appreciate just how tall the thing was. The Angel was over 1.5 kilometers tall. More corrosive poured forth from the Angel's eye, but Asuka was able to dodge it easier this time. She unloaded her pallet rifle at the Angel, hypersonic bullets shredding their way through the Angel's body but missing the core. LCL came down on the city like a bloody rainstorm, painting even more of it red. The Angel fired wildly, trying desperately to hit her. It succeeded, a stray glob ruining her pallet rifle and corroding some of the armor on her torso. Before the Angel could press its advantage, however, a large flash of light shone briefly nearby. Several energy beams lashed out, striking against the Angel's field. The Angel was forced back by the assault, wobbling unsteadily on its 3 remaining legs. Asuka turned her head, wondering where the blasts could have come from. There were a dozen of military vehicles nearby now, similar in design to tanks. Instead of cannons, however, they appeared to be sporting a variety of weapons that looked more at home in science fiction movies. Asuka realized that these must have been EDF forces. The cavalry had arrived. More energy beams lashed out from the EDF tanks, smashing into the Angel's field. A large plane sporting similar weapons also joined into the fray, firing a particularly large beam from its nose. The field didn't hold. With a great crashing sound it shattered like glass, allowing the energy beams to tear into the fragile flesh of the angel. Its remaining legs were severed by the attack, and the main body of the creature fell back down, creating a large crater in the ground. Despite it all, the angel was not dead, a fact that Asuka would soon remedy. Drawing her progressive knife, she lunged at the angel, plunging the knife into its now exposed core. The core shattered, and with it the angel finally died. Like its predecessors, it swelled up then exploded into LCL. Asuka pulled back, exhausted but feeling pleased with herself. Another angel kill under her belt. With that the Eva finally powered down, leaving her to be recovered.